Hey there, paper geeks and glitter nerds, it's another crazy geek crafter. This week's card is all about the summer, and to me summer is strawberries, maybe cherries, but I came across this shaker pack from Love2Stamp with strawberries in it, so I needed to make a card with it, and I also got myself a die that makes strawberry branches with both flowers and berries. So I'm going to start out with cutting it apart. I prefer my different parts to not be stuck together, and this is going to take a few seconds. With the dies all cut apart, I'm ready to start die cutting, and I'm going to go with a colored cardstock with the inking look. So I'm picking out 2 different colors of green. I have no clue where they're from, what names they have, but I'm pretty sure you can find something that will satisfy your needs if you want to recreate this card. The good thing about this die is that I only have to use my sidekick. I don't have to turn on the big machine for this part. But it's going to take a bit, so I hope you'll enjoy it. And if not, I put in chapters so you can skip ahead to the next step in the project. With the die cutting out of the way, I can move on to the next element, so to speak, of the card, which is the card base. I'm going to need this to figure out what kind of size I want my shaker. I buy these pre-cut, pre-folded. That's how I prefer it, but you can easily make them yourself. I use a European standard called A6. I do have a video on the different standards that I tend to use for cards. I can link it in the corner for you. The shaker is going to be round. I figured I could get the branches of the strawberries to twirl around it. So I needed to figure out how big I needed the circles, and I picked out 2 from my stacked circles. And I just have to cut 2 pieces of acetate because I want this to be see-through. Firstly I need to cut the frame for the project, but then I'm going to need to cut acetate for making the actual shaker. I did also make a strawberry card last year, and I used this paper, and I have some left over. It's a printable I got off of Etsy from a shop called Dandelionery, I think you say it. It's very pretty. I could have printed out a full page if I wanted, but I figured I'd use some scraps. So I decided on a piece of the pattern paper, and I'm going to make a mat in this bright green color for my card. Again, I have no idea what brand this is or the name of the color. I just like it. So it fits quite well with my pattern paper here, and it'll fit with my strawberry branches, I think. So here's the acetate. I just need to find it. I have a bin of acetates and vellums and some lamination sheets that I've already pre-made. The lamination sheet I often use for stencils, but they can be used for other things as well. But for this particular project, I wanted it to be as see-through as possible, and therefore I want to use acetate because it's thin, whereas the lamination sheets are more distorting of the background than this will be. Of course, I'm using a double layer, so there'll still be some distortion. Since the shaker is going to go on and off this pattern paper, I decided to make it with 2 pieces of acetate so that I have the shaker bits encapsulated completely without catching on anything. I always, when I cut acetate on my die cutting machine, sandwich it in a piece of paper, and I'm going to cut the paper. There's no way around it, but it keeps the acetate from getting too many scratches and marks from the very used cutting plate. It may be a waste of paper, but I prefer this look. I'm willing to sacrifice the paper for it. Since my shaker bits are made out of clay, they're a bit high, so I have to account for that when I pick out the thickness of foam I want, and I don't have a piece that's 4 pieces high, so I'm going to make one that is quite long, and then I can keep the rest in my box for adhesive. There we go. I was hoping I could make it long enough to have one piece go all the way around, but it didn't work out that way. Now I need to cut it quite thinly. Thinly? I don't think that's a word. Sorry, I'm a bit tired. It's been a long day, but I wanted to finish this up for you, so I could be on time. So I have to piece it together, and there's going to be a tiny bit of a hole in this one. It may not be that important when I use clay pieces, but if I was using beads, tiny glass beads, they would escape through this hole. So I'm just going to fill it, just for good measure, with glue, and that should keep anything from escaping. And at this point I hadn't decided whether or not to put in anything other than the shaker mix. My cardstock is looking a bit plain, so I'm going to smudge it a bit with this forest moss and some perfect pearls in water, in the color perfect pearl, just to break up the very monotone background. I can leave that off to dry while I fix the rest of my die cuts. the fourth yellow piece, 4 little yellow pieces there, I don't know where they actually go. So I'm going to watch out for other videos where other people use this dye. Maybe I'll figure it out. I put some talcum powder into my shaker so that the shaker pieces won't as easily get stuck to each other and to the sides of the foam where it can be a bit sticky. It's not as big a problem with these as it is with the sequins or what are they called? Confettis and stuff like that. But I'm sandwiching it in here and give it a good shake, just for good measure. And then the shaker element is ready. I can assemble the card. First I put on the backgrounds. And now that I have my inks out, I might as well ink the edges. I maybe should have gone with the fired brick here instead of the Candied Apple, but I don't know. It's a pop of color. You won't see much of this paper in the end, but I do like the effect it gives to have something break up the background a bit. And when the sequins have fallen down, you can see some of the strawberry, but not much because the leaves are going to cover most of it up. But the background doesn't look as boring when this is in the background. I may have gone a tad overboard carrying the branch outside of the circle, but it's okay. I didn't put a sentiment on this since I don't know who's getting it or for what occasion, so I can add that on later if I want, if I need it. And here's a sound test. It doesn't make as good a sound as some shaker cards, but it's good enough. The seed beads really give the perfect sound, and sequins also have a distinctive sound to them. These clay bits, maybe they need a bit of help in that department. But this was the card this week. I hope you enjoyed it, that you'll be back next week. Until then, I hope you'll be having a good day, evening, or night.